Hi everyone, this is Gwyneth Talley. I'm a PhD candidate at UCLA in the Department of Anthropology. First of all, my apologies that I can't be there to present. Just a lot of things stacked up against me, so I'm very sorry I can't be there to present. But I also want to say thank you so much to the Year of Morocco Conference organizers for allowing me to present it to you via video. And I also want to say especially a big marhaba fi American and salamu alaikum to our Moroccan presenters. And I'm very sorry I couldn't meet you. And I hope that if anyone has any questions after this presentation, that you feel free to contact me via email or social media. I'm more than willing to answer questions, and I'm very interested to hear feedback on my talk. So my focus today is women in Tabourida and sporting Morocco. And a little bit about myself. I am an equestrian, a lifelong equestrian, as you can see by the first picture on the left. That is me getting my first horse. I think I'm about 2 in the photo. So horses and riding horses have been a lifelong passion of mine. And then you see me at a festival, I think that's in 2012. It's at the festival Moussoum Moulay Abdelamghar outside El Jadida, and it's one of the largest Tabourida festivals in Morocco. And that is probably one of the largest horses in Morocco. I want to say it was probably bred with a Shire horse for those fun horse people in the audience. And I first came to Morocco in 2010, where I lived with a horse training family in the Haras in Meknès, where I first saw someone practicing Tabourida. So everyone's probably going, what is Tabourida? Finally, tell us, Gwyneth. I'll tell you. So Tabourida comes from the word baroud, which is gunpowder, or lab al baroud, the gunpowder games. Some of you might also know it as Fantasia. That's the French term and also kind of an appropriated Western term for it. But it's actually a former cavalry charge used by Arabs and Amazigh tribes during tribal raids known as razzias. Now, they would get their gunpowder rifles, charge at their enemy, discharge their rifles, and then go back and regroup. It was also a demonstration of warrior prowess and also very celebratory after they came back victorious. Now, today, it's a cultural spectacle for saints' days, festivals, weddings, and it's also a sporting competition at regional and national levels. And it's much more about the synchronization. So a troop will gather as a line, or a sorba, that's the name means line, or a team, and they charge down about the length of a football field, standing in their stirrups, twirling their rifles, and then galloping to the end where they discharge their rifles all at the same time and then roughly reining in their horses. So if you decide to go to Morocco, do ask where you can find a Tabourida. The local festivals are a whole lot of fun to watch and be around. And then also, if you don't get a chance to see one that's happening on the local level, you can also see the display at Chez Ali, which is a Marrakesh restaurant dinner spectacle, kind of like a medieval times here that we have in the States. So what you see here is the troupe of Ama Hamri. She's one of the first all-female troops in Morocco. And so Ama's in the middle. She's the leader, the Muqaddama. And she leads this troupe here, and it's in January in Zagora in the south of Morocco at one of the local festivals. And she's one of probably 9 troops, the numbers fluctuate depending on the year, of all-female teams, and there are also women who ride with their brothers or male family members. So why focus on women? my first argument is why not? But they're a new phenomenon happening on the Tabourida field in the past 15 years. They first arrived on the scene in 2004, and that's why I make this correlation and causation with the 2004 Mudawana reform, which is the family law code or the personal status code reform, which granted women a lot of new rights, such as the abolition of a needed guardian. It raised the marriage age. It gave them the rights to divorce and a bunch of other things. But you have this new generation of women coming of age with these rights that they have to now negotiate with traditional family values as they're joining this sport. And this is the troupe of Bushra Nabata, and she lives outside of Rabat. And this is what I would kind of call a little bit of a meet, because it's Bushra's brother's team and her team giving kind of a demonstration. It's not an actual festival, but they were able to scrounge up some gunpowder to play and to go for about 3 days straight, which was a lot of fun to watch. So some of the background history. So women have not always been riding, but there were always exceptions where women were a part of the resistance, either riding or contributing to any kind of resistance against the colonial powers. And men previously accepted women in this space due to it being permissible as jihad. But afterwards, the women are required to go back to their homes and back to their traditional roles, usually not very willingly. And so 2 generations later, as the Mudawana changes, this leads women to having greater freedom and feeling more comfortable getting in these spaces. So in 2000, Princess Lala Amina, which is Allah Alhamha, she is the King Mohammed VI's aunt, a very passionate horsewoman, and she's appointed as the president of the Royal Moroccan Equestrian Federation. And very much so, she's very much Hassan II's sister, because he was a large influence in the horse world. And so she becomes this figure that's very hands-on in terms of making sure women are starting to compete in equestrian sports. And this is right as King Mohammed VI has ascended the throne. And so there's a lot of kind of change happening. You see the 2004 Mudawana reform happening. And right as that's happening, Lala Amina starts to gather groups of women to compete for the Hassan II or the Hassan II trophy class in Tabourida at Dar Salam and Rabat during the Week of the Horse, which is also one of her brainchilds, is having this week dedicated to horse sports. And from 2005 to 2010, you have a trophy class specifically for women that they can strive for the Hassan II trophy class. And they're not competing against the men, they're just competing with each other. So it originally started with 4 groups, and then I think it was about 10 groups by the time they stopped having the class. This is the women discharging the gunpowder rifles. This is definitely a common scene, and just they're so close to this dangerous sport. You see all the gunpowder everywhere. They're charging their horses. It's also a very dangerous sport. So I'm going to stay on this for a second. So as of 2011, these trophy class disappeared without a word. And there became a lot of gossip as to what was happening in terms of what happened to the class, why was it not allowed? And the answer I kind of got was that a troop was reportedly doing something immoral. And this is very open to suggestion in terms of they were having men in their tent, they were drinking, they were smoking. Nothing's confirmed, and rumors were just flying. One particular writer said that maybe it was due to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's influence giving money to these trophy classes. I think that's highly unlikely due to the fact that the Moroccan Equestrian Federation garners its own support through horse racing. But there was definitely some tension between the women's behavior and the publicity that the women were getting through the media. So it disappeared without a trace. And then in 2012, Princess Lala Amina dies, leaving no champion of women equestrians, which is quite sad because they had this great champion pushing for women's involvement. And then to have Lala Amina take the class away, along with kind of support for the women in Tabourida, it was quite a shock. So now women are competing on the local level, they're going to festivals, but there has been no attempt to revive the Hassan II trophy class for women, which is quite sad. But they continue on. Right now there's about 10 troops in Morocco as of 2018. And I kind of look at women in sports and look at some kind of strategies for how they navigate their way into this male-dominated sphere. So I base it off of Harkness and Hungsermeyer's resistance strategies that are ways that women across the Middle East and North Africa navigate sports. So instead of looking at them as resistance strategies within like a social non-movement, as Asif Bayat might suggest, I suggest that they're ways of navigating and continuing in sports. And this is not just for the Tuborida women. There are growing women interests in taekwondo, surfing in Morocco, like very male-dominated sports. And so the 5 strategies I'm going to give you today, I'm going to give you some brief examples and then conclude. But the first strategy is merging athletics and Islam to create a compatible narrative. And the way a lot of the women do this is they quote the hadith, teach your children swimming, archery, and horseback riding. They often carry the Quran in a small pocket. When they ride, they show deference to people coming to pray with them before competitions, and so they really make it their own. And second, they play sports in a gender-segregated area. Now, sometimes this is more possible than others. So when women teams go to these festivals, oftentimes their tent is set apart from the men. They play Taborida as a group of all women. Now, this is, of course, kind of negotiable because a lot of women that ride in Taborida might ride with their families, their male relatives. So that kind of is a little bit more permissible. But by staying in an all-female troop, in an all-female tent, oftentimes they're given accommodations in a youth hostel or outside of the festival grounds, because a lot of the men stay in the tents during these festivals. So in order to kind of keep an appropriate image, the women are usually segregated that way. They also keep to sartorial customs, which means they wear the appropriate clothing. Now, people have speculated that the troops that wear the bright colors are the women. No, that's not the case. Both male and female troops wear bright colors in Taborida. You'll see beautiful bright pink jalabas, yellow, blue, green, and they'll be worn, the colors will be worn across the board between males and females. And as you saw in some of the previous pictures, most of the women, a lot of the times they wear pink. But they're not doing anything revealing. Their hair is covered, not just in deference to the custom, but also to keep their hair out of the way while they're riding, because if you get gunpowder kind of anywhere in the hair and you burn your hair, you burn your face. So some of it is keeping with safety precautions, but also adhering to what you're expected to wear in the Taborida. And probably the most important one is getting the family on board. Most of these women, like I keep saying, have male members of their family who participate in Taborida, and if they don't, usually they have to have a very supportive parent or parents who will support them going to Taborida, traveling with other women, going to these festivals, and being okay with that. So getting the family on board has been interesting. When I ask a lot of questions like this in my interview, I ask, like, were your family supportive? And a lot of girls started learning how to do this in secret. And then eventually when they got good at it and they quit falling off their horses, that's when they told their family. And so when their family first saw them ride, they were very successful. So it was a way of like showing their parents they really can do this. Also, if the women are getting married, that's a huge point of contention. They want to find husbands typically that support them riding. Ama Amri, the first woman I showed you, she is actually married with two children, and her husband's also a horse trainer. So you have this kind of supportive horse family supporting them. Also, Bushra Nabata's team, Bushra's father rides to Burida, and her brother rides to Burida. So it was kind of, it just kind of rolled in the family with both her sisters riding and her riding. And finally, probably the the least important one I tend to think is that they play sports at school. Now, I would probably suggest that the women also play sports outside of school or just do were very active leading up to their involvement into Borida. So you had um, girls girls and women going to the gym, playing games and being active with their classmates. But I find that one to be it's not as important as the first four. This is another girl of Bush's team. So as you can see, she's wearing a hand guard while she's gripping her rifle. So this is to really prevent any kind of injuries. And she's also wearing the sword behind her back while she wears a hijab, and she'll wear either a jalaba and sirwal, which is like the long robe type top and loose flowing pants, or some of the leaders will wear kaftans, the female leaders. So what does this mean in terms of like women in sports? So it's a lot of visibility. So as the women were gaining momentum in 2004, 2005, 2006, there was a lot of press focused on the women. So this is also good news, bad news. People were really focusing in on this new phenomenon, and that didn't do them any favors when it came out about the women's troop that was quote unquote immoral. So they also have this great influence of being a physical presence in the rural areas that traditionally don't have female teams. And they also have a social media presence. So this visibility to people who don't normally see women in Taborida and social media passing on these stories of successful women riders is really garnering a lot of support now. And seeing an image like this, so this is Ama Amri and her daughter Lilia. This is in January 2016 in Zagora, and she's riding her horse Sharam Sheikh. And seeing this kind of image where it's a successful Taburida leader who's also a mother and who can handle a horse, it's a very powerful message to see across Morocco. And Amal is also part of the mounted police. She trains at the police academy in Kenitra. So she's also this very strong, interesting character of a woman that kind of shows what women who do sports that can also have like a successful job and the typical expectations of motherhood and marriage. So these women muddle the gender expectations. Single and married women participate. Some bring their children to Taborida festivals, and they have expectations within marriage of continuing to ride or being involved with it. And work and education are high priorities for them. And I'm going to probably wrap up there. So I'm going to go back really quick. These are three women in her team, and Manar on the left is wrapping her hand, Fatima in the background in the middle is putting a boot on, and Bedia is killing time on her cell phone. And that's the thing with horse competitions. If anyone in the room's been to a horse competition or participated in one, a lot of it is hurry up and wait. But you see the women wearing their long green jalibas. It's a Friday, so you had to wear green because green's the color of Islam. But wrapping it up, I just want to say that these women are negotiating gender norms, and it's not always been easy. So continuing through their women's their visibility is very important to their continued success, but they're still struggling for this recognition and acceptance at a national competitive level. And it's really speaking volumes about what it means to be a woman in this male-dominated sport, and the double standard it means to have their class revoked like that, because if any kind of male team was caught smoking, drinking, or having women in their tent, there'd be no consequences. But because there was a lot of scrutiny on them and expectations for them, the women's class was canceled. So now it's a matter of waiting to see whether they can garner enough support to be reinstated on the national level. But until then, they are going to continue riding and shooting. So here you are, you see this is almost a perfect synchronous firing of the team, and it's just beautiful at twilight to see this. And you see these women that are riding in this dangerous sport, and they're giving it their all every time they go out. So no matter what, they'll always go out with a bang. I'm sorry, gotta pardon the pun. So other aspects you might be interested is human-horse relationships is what I look at, as well as relationships between riders in terms of female-to-female riders and female riders and their male counterparts, as well as their male family members. And I'm also producing a documentary called Gunpowder Girls. It hopefully will be finished filming this year and be out for film festivals in 2020, so I will keep everyone posted if you're curious. And it follows my main informant, Emma Ampony, and her journey navigating her roles as mother, as policewoman, and as Taburida leader. So thank you so much. As we say, happy trails. Please email me with any of your questions, comments. I'm really interested to hear what you have to say. If you want to get in touch with any, find out when any Taburida happenings are happening, let me know. You can also find me at Wandering Gwyneth on Instagram and Twitter. And I really appreciate you all taking the time to listen. Thanks so much.